So I would need to do that again, and to not make mistakes like this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
But I
planning.
downhill.
Yeah. Right.
A
Yeah.
lot.
So I'm only familiar with the regular, well, what's it called? Skiing on the piste or prepared.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'm kind of planning to do cross country, but that's just more in Scandinavia, and then take a tour of 3 or 4 days, organized, so or at least with a guide and people that know the area well, and then
Oh, going town to town or hut to hut is a
hut to
blast.
hut. Yeah. I even see on well, I was kind of looking on options. There are also options that we get, you go with a tent even. So even probably they go in February or later March when it's less cold. And then you travel with tent, or they prepare tents. I don't know, actually. I haven't looked. Yeah. I only saw the marketing video, and that with the Northern Lights. Yeah. But I never did cross country, so maybe I should first start training for cross country and then plan a trip of 4 days. Yeah. Okay, I think we're. Oh yeah, thanks. We're there. It's 9 o'clock. All speakers are present. It's a good crowd. So thank you. Thank you all for joining for the interim. So this interim is specifically for the 2 drafts, structured DNS error and the Nottingham resolvers. And well, maybe let's go first. Start officially the interim with the node well, and then we discuss the agenda and the possible outcome. So welcome all. So my name is Benno Overeinder. Andre Suri cannot join the interim meeting. The secretaries, Schumann and Peter. Peter is online. I've seen here Schumann also. I thought I saw Schumann. And well, so the notes, I will take notes from the transcript and make it very brief and only summarize the action points. So there will not be very extensive minutes, but the action points will be posted to the mailing list. Good. So this is an interim meeting. It is a regular, it's an IETF meeting, so the node well applies here. And we all assume that you are aware of the node well and what it incorporates and what it includes. One part of the node well is the code of conduct. I won't go over all the individual points here, but the takeaway is be respectful and kind to each other. Nice. If you feel that the code of conduct is not followed, is violated, please reach out to the chairs or to the IETF Ombuds team. We take it seriously. So the agenda for today. Oh, this is the old agenda. Sorry, that's with copy and paste work. So today we have the 2 speakers. So this is Dan Wing on the structured DNS and Mark Nottingham on his draft. During the IETF last call of the structured DNS error, there was some feedback in general and also somewhat related to the other draft. So the feedback from the last call has been incorporated in this draft. I asked also the authors to, if they're still willing to go for another iteration on the document, and the working group chairs feel that we want to go for another working group last call of the draft after this interim meeting and incorporating all the other feedback, and to align it with the other draft from Mark Nottingham. so there's no conflict, so it can be extended. And yeah, so that's the goal of today. So one is to have the draft structured DNS error ready for another DNSOP working group last call, and then submit it to the IESG. And the other goal is to have the other document from Mark Nottingham aligned, and that can be, for example, and later on we can do a call for adoption for this draft, and feel and see if the working group wants to work on the document further. Any questions on the agenda? So after the two introductions or overview presentations, we have an open discussion with the authors and all the participants. And then we have some conclude with some steps forward. Any questions before we start on the agenda? No, you can raise your hand, but I don't. No. So thank you. So I would like to ask Dan to,
Yeah, can you drive the slides because there's only a couple?
yeah, I will. Alrighty. There we go.
So I am Dan Wing. So this is an update from the IETF last call. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So last call was for 15. All the changes are in 16 and summarized here. So we improved the text that what to process for what's returned back is all up to the client, and the client can do whatever it wants, ignore the stuff, throw it in a log file, show it all to the user, translate it, whatever they want to do. We had a little more constrained language before. We also, as you recall, in this spec, have a indicator in the request to request that the server respond with this extended data. And that was previously writing on top of the extended error code, which did not itself define that to exist in a request. So some feedback we received, we've moved that to its own option code. So there's no lack of clarity on what the intent is. So the requests have a new option code, and the responses use that option code to include all of the extended data. And we allow, enhance the text to allow the S sub-error code, which is what contains effectively enums, to be returned in any response, and also created a registry for those as well. So those are the changes due to IETF last call. Next slide, please. So a quick summary, just to remind everyone on the draft, it's a self-contained explanation for a block or a filter that occurred, justification text, which is free form, a contact and organization that caused the block, and then the sub-error code that, as I said, is an enum that is extensible of some common filtering reasons, and then the language, which is what the justification text is written in. And that's all that happens, all self-contained. And that's the summary of what changed in 16. I can take questions now if there's any. I doubt it. Or move on to Mark and take questions during your larger Q&A, whatever.
Yeah. So I see Paul Hoffman in the queue, so I'm happy to have questions right now. Paul?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, Paul maybe
You
has
jumped
to. Yeah, it worked and it didn't work, so maybe he has to. Okay, we'll wait for a minute for Paul to join.
Oh, it does now actually let me do voice at least. Sorry. Yeah. So just a quick question. In the IETF last call, I got the feeling that some people were asking not that you say anyone can do anything with the response, but that they were supposed to do a thing with it, which I don't think you want to do. Um, do you feel like the new text actually responds to them, or are you ignoring them and leaving it as just you get to do whatever you want?
My interpretation of what we wrote is you can do whatever you want. And
Okay.
perhaps it needs to be tightened.
I don't think that it needs to be tightened. I just wanted to make sure that, like, if somebody says they didn't respond to these last call comments, that you at least didn't respond, like in your mind, that you heard what they said and you didn't feel like they needed to. And by the way, I'm not agreeing with those people. There were a couple of people who I felt were saying, why are we having this if they're not going to respond, blah, blah, blah. And I think that the answer is we let people drop whatever messages they want all the time.
Yeah, we do for every protocol.
Great.
You
Okay.
ignore
Just
stuff
wanted to make sure that
didn't suit you.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that that was conscious on your part. And if it comes up during the IETF discussion, then the IESG discussion, at least we know it was conscious.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and either the authors or the chairs can also inform the ISG in this discussion that this has been discussed and also during the working group, and it's intentional. Yeah. Any other questions for Dan? No? Okay. Then we move over to the second presentation. Mark, do you want to run it or I can do it?
If you could, great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly. Yeah.
Okay. So this is Draft Nottingham Public Resolver Errors 02, full title DNS Filtering Details for Applications, by myself, and David Adrian from Chrome has come on as a co-author. Next slide. I will just, we've done this before, but I'll briefly go over kind of the introduction for folks who aren't familiar. The problem statement is that DNS-based censorship, and especially illegally mandated censorship, is becoming more prevalent. We're seeing court orders in different parts of the world requiring people who operate resolvers of various sorts to block certain addresses or block certain names from being resolved. And the problem that creates, well, there are a couple of problems, but that is indistinguishable from a technical error. From an end user standpoint, they don't know if it's a problem with their DNS resolver or with the site or a temporary network error. There's no feedback to the end user. And so that confuses folks. It degrades their experience. They spend time trying to fix it or to work around it. And that creates support load for ISPs, for resolvers, for websites, wherever people think that the actual problem is, they try and contact some sort of support desk. And at a higher level, kind of, or a more philosophical level, if people aren't aware that their governments are doing things, that's not a great situation either. And so giving them that information allows them to create other workarounds and perhaps use other protocols that aren't defined by the IETF. And so the general solution space here is really surfacing the nature of that error to the end user so they can make informed decisions. Next slide. The complicating factor here is that trust is tricky, as we're finding in many protocols these days. A lot of DNS resolvers are interposed by an untrusted third party, so your classic coffee shop or airport Wi-Fi kind of situation. and because the information we're talking about exposing could be acted upon by the end user, that creates a vulnerability. It creates an attack vector. And even when the resolver is trusted, just because you trust them to resolve names for you doesn't mean you necessarily trust them to speak with a particular voice. So this is a big issue, especially for web browser vendors. Displaying text from a third party in what is usually a two-party interaction creates lots of concerns about, how that can be exploited. And so some sort of guide rails or limitations are necessary to mitigate that factor. Next slide. So in draft 00 and 01, we took the approach of well, first of all, conveying a link for more information about the filtering incident to show to users so that they could go and find out more about what had happened. We focused on the resolver as a choke point to kind of mitigate that trust issue, that only trusted resolvers effectively would be used to show or be allowed to show this kind of information. And we used a kind of a little scheme where a registry was used to identify them, and then applications and browsers can figure out which ones they could show to end users. And of course, the problem with that is it privileges potentially some resolvers over others. So next slide. In draft 02, we shifted to a different approach of filtering incident databases. So instead of saying we're only going to allow these resolvers to show these kinds of, or identify resolvers that can show these messages, we shifted to the repository of the incidents that illustrate what's going on. And so it's the website that shows you effectively, what are the legal demands that created this censorship incident. And a well-known example of this, and I think one that the implementers are planning to use from the get-go, is Lumen Database, which a long time ago used to be Chilling Effects. It was started by Wendy Seltzer way back when, and now it lives in somewhere in the bowels of Harvard. I think they just changed their affiliation inside of Harvard. But it's just a database of legal demands that you can look up and say, well, there's a GDPR complaint here, or there's a court order there. And that allows you to have a kind of a neutral third party that's generally trusted by the community that you can point to and say, well, this is what happened when your connection was filtered. It's not just Lumen Database, of course. We're going to have an IANA registry where you can register other ones of these, and there can be other databases of filtering incidents. But the idea here is that any resolver can point to these. It's not just a few privileged resolvers that can do that. Now, of course, applications and browsers can still decide which databases they think are trustworthy for this purpose, but the hope is that this takes a little bit of the concern around the centralizing effect that draft 00 and 01 had. And of course, now the draft name public resolver errors is misleading because it's not just about public resolvers, it's potentially about any resolver. Next slide. So implementation status. David, are you still online? Do you want to take this over, perhaps?
Sure. Yeah, so we're working on landing this in Chrome in partnership with Cloudflare and 8.8.8.8 with the intent of being able to link to Lumen off the DNS error page. We would the DNS stack in Chrome is oddly complicated, so what should have been like an afternoon has taken much longer than that, but we're aiming for M147, which is the release of Chrome that comes out in March, or comes out in early April. As you can see, this is like 2/3 of the way done. We proxy through, or we pipe all of the extended error information, which has been long due for an update onto the DNS error page, onto the error page. We parse out all the JSON. It's just dumped out raw here. We need to update it to do the URL filtering, the templates that Mark just described. Still work in progress. But the idea would be that we could render a link to Lumen database, which is what Google's resolver is intending on using as its provider, similar to what Google does on the search results page for when results have been DMCA'd. I know that other resolvers in Chrome have expressed interest in either running their own database or using a different one. We would obviously, update our implementation to point at those when we become aware of them. There is already a process in Chrome for becoming one of the resolvers that's in the dropdown for picking a DNS resolver. Once this is working, we would sort of update that questionnaire to say, hey, do you return this type of information? And if so, who's your filtering provider? And make sure that we at least cover that set. Beyond that, you know, open source software. Hopefully that covers things. Mark, do you have anything else?
Yeah, just my understanding is, so you're saying you're aiming for M147, but that would be behind a feature flag. That's not.
Oh, correct. Flagged in 147. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide, if we have one. I forget if we have one. Right. Yeah, so this draft just uses the structured errors draft. It's built on top of it. I don't think there's any incompatibility. I think, you know, if there's a working group last call, we'll take another look through it just to make sure. But I think, like I said in an email, the editorial work by the editors of that draft made a lot of progress, and we gave a little bit of feedback, and I think it's headed in the right direction. So I think we can build on top of it, which is good. And I think that's all we have.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions direct to Mark and David, sorry, for the presentation? Yep. Gautam, please go ahead.
Hi, Gautam Akiwate, Apple. So I think for the DNS filtering details, I think we're generally supportive of this approach. And the switch to the filtering incident databases seems like a reasonable choice and actually addresses a lot of concerns for us. I think there is one big issue, one big area of concern, which is privacy. That I do not see well addressed in the draft, which is like how does a user actually connect to these filtering databases without having information leaked about what is it that they were actually visiting. So that is an area that I think could use some work, and I'm happy to work with you folks to propose some text there. So that seems good. The other question that I think you briefly alluded to in this was like the overlap with the structured DNS error, and it seems like the only thing that you folks are using is just the extra text JSON registries. Is there any other points of overlap that you can think of, or is this, so I guess another way of asking this question is this approach dependent on structured DNS errors making it through, or can this stand independent of it? Thanks.
I think if for whatever reason structured DNS errors were to not be published, it would be pretty trivial to, you know, adapt this to stand on its own. It would require more kind of infrastructure to get into the DNS, but I don't think there's a strong dependency. It's just very convenient to be able to use it. That's my impression. David?
We do depend on the signaling mechanism. I forget which bit you flip to indicate that the extra text can come as, you can parse it out as JSON. That's the main thing.
Thank you. Oh, so Rolf is cute. Yeah. So next is Paul Hoffman.
I won't try video just because video doesn't seem to be working today. So, Mark, I will repeat a concern that I said to you in private quite a while ago, which is the IANA registry. A first come, first serve IANA registry that has anything to do with censorship is just an obvious trap. And I don't think that it serves anybody, especially since you are, and I think correctly so, saying any browser can use, you know, whichever things they, you know, whichever providers they want. I don't think that having a pretend collection there, you know, with pretend meaning you can go outside of the collection, actually helps anybody. And you know, yes, I work for ICANN, but I'm absolutely not speaking for IANA here. I think this just adds work for IANA for no actual value to either the end users or the browser vendors for who are they going to trust, what, what's a reasonable list and such like that. The large databases who want to be there have people who know how to reach out to the browser vendors. And I think that that's going to be where the greatest buck is. Other than that, I do think it's a great idea. I do have the same privacy concerns other people have, but not to the extent where I would say you need to fix the privacy issue before going forwards. I think thinking about the privacy issue, thinking about proxies who might ameliorate the privacy issue is sufficient here.
If I could respond briefly, I think, when we were talking about this, the value in the registry is mostly in making more legible what's happening behind the scenes, to say, well, the browsers are consulting from this set. And yes, it's true, they can only, they can be selective about what they show in that set, but it gives a little transparency into what's going on. I don't see the obvious problem with having a registry. Yes, it is a censorship related registry, but there's no obvious immediate benefit from creating an entry in it. So I would be surprised if there was a deluge of registrations. I'm an expert for a number of registries. There are other registries where that's a problem, and I'm actually working through a draft right now to try and create a conversation on how to fix that. But my gut feeling is that for this one, it's less of a concern. But your mileage may vary, obviously.
Thanks. Next is Dan on the queue.
Yeah, it seems that the ID values that are returned by DNS need to be coordinated with the Lumen database that it's pointing off to. That coordination happens out of band, or an IANA registry that needs to be created, or something, because of a DNS resolver decides, gosh, this needs to be filtered for censorship reasons, and last week that was ID ABC123, to take an example out of your draft, but the Lumen database is not constrained to keep that same description, and that seems risky to point off to it unless you're confident it's going to keep that same description.
So you definitely, when you register something, it needs to be in coordination with the people actually running that database. And you need, in the web world, Tim has this whole cool URIs don't change. And so you need some sort of URI permanence guarantee or a policy by that site. And then you have, that would be, yes, we're going to always publish our incident, URLs in this particular form. And the URL template in the registry reflects that form. So you have confidence that those URLs are going to work over time. It would not be great if we went off and, without telling the Lumen database, said, hey, yeah, this is registered on behalf of the Lumen database, because they would have no idea. And, ideally they wouldn't change their links anyway, but they should have a say in this, of course. Does that make sense?
That makes some sense. I think I understand where that would go. Is there a reason that the text that would be in that Lumen database is not simply an expanded enum, let's call it, string that's compiled into the browser?
Yes. So one, Lumen in some cases can provide like the actual court order and make that accessible, which like you're not going to provide a PDF over DNS. And so they can provide a bit more context there. And then going back to kind of your first question, like, for example, on the search results page in Google, somewhere in Google, there's a database of search results that have been blocked. And then we map back to Lumen, which, Lumen database entries have those in partnership with Lumen. Similarly, for 8.8.8 or presumably other resolvers that have to deal with this type of thing, they will have a database somewhere of the things that they are not allowed to resolve. And inside of that database, they can store, what the ID or URL or whatever of a publicly accessible description of why that is there, if they so choose. And so that's how we kind of expect implementations will work. The kind of out of bound, the inherent out of bounds mechanism is the fact that like someone needs to go to the resolvers and tell them you have to block this thing, and then the resolver has to implement that at some point. And so that's kind of the out of band communication mechanism, for better or for worse.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next is Rolf. Does the mic work for you, Rolf? Otherwise, I can relay your question. You posted on Zulip. Oh, okay, so let's see. Rolf asked. Yeah, so Rolf asked, will the Chrome implementation allow other resolvers without registration use the Lumen database?
I think we're planning on starting with allowing any resolver to use the database. If that turns out to be a bad idea, we'll link it back to the existing mechanism for like when a public resolver wants to be added to the Chrome drop-down list.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you. Any other people with questions before we go for the open discussion? So we already had some questions specific for the draft. Maybe you want to rename the draft later. Okay, excellent. I do see interest here from the working group, but again, I think, well, I don't know about the next IETF or anytime you can also do during the working group session, a presentation, and we can queue, if you want to go further, queue and call for adoption. Now I want to have kind of the open discussion. So 2 questions here from me to the working group is, do we all think DNS structured error, structured DNS error is ready with the feedback from the working group and already incorporated last call feedback? Do we all think it's ready for working group last call, another iteration? And that might probably be after the IETF. And second question, does it, well, and I did hear, see the comments from Mark, there's no conflict or incompatibility between both drafts. Does everyone agree with that? Okay, Paul, please.
Why are we going to a working group last call after the IETF last call? That is, did you chairs consider there to be enough changes technically for it to come back?
Yeah, okay, so procedurally it's given back to the working group. So before I send it to our AD, I will discuss it with Matt, but I can imagine he wants to have a new consensus call. Yeah.
Okay, because procedurally it actually doesn't go back to the working group. Procedurally, it goes to the ISG, but it absolutely can come back if, for example, the authors made significant technical changes. And so I'm just asking, why should it come back?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, fair question. So in my data tracker, I see it's now again a DNSOP working group document, but that's how. But I will double check with Matt.
Because my feeling is that looking at the diffs, in fact, they did make significant changes that the working group would have absolutely been fine with had they been there the first time.
Yeah, and I did see, and both, indeed, there have been changes, and both also the suggestions and the email from Mark, I think in June, or I don't know, I forgot, it was in June, July. are all incorporated, and I really want to thank the authors, Dan Wing, Tiru, and the other authors of the document. They put all the effort in structured DNS errors to make it ready for another, let's call it the IETF last call, but maybe we need a working group last call. Again, so IC is back in working group, but I will double check with Matt.
Benno?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Mark. Yeah, please speak up. Yeah.
No worries. I remember when the updated draft came out, and I had a look at it.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy with what I saw. If you're not going to do another working group last call, I think that's fine. But I might just take another quick look through and make sure that it's all good.
For me, indeed, extra pair of eyes and a review by the working group before going to the last call. It's also a stronger signal to the IETF during the last call that there was consensus in the working group, and so it's also better for the ADs in the ISG, so they can take a stance and say, well, this has been discussed, and yeah. So my personal preference would be also be in working group last call and then go and send it to the ISG. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. That's one of the important outcomes of the interim for me, for the chairs and the secretary. The other, and well, as usual in DNSOP or in many working groups, we don't do the call for adoptions during sessions, always on the mailing list. But from the feedback I heard, there's interest also in, still the Nottingham resolver, but it will be renamed, public resolver, but it will be renamed to another draft. But I do hear interest from the working group to work on this document. Mark, do you attend the next IETF? Or you can always remote.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be there in person.
Yeah. So excellent. So or remote, but I think it's good to have the O2 version presented during the working group session. And then, well, again, given the presentation, the feedback from the working group during the IETF on the 25, we can plan a call for adoption and see if there's consensus to pick up the work. Are there any comments, feedback from the working group? No? Okay. Any other business, actually? Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, Jim. Please go ahead. That's our technical advisor. So Jim also is a participant, but also our technical advisor. So
thanks, Benno. I'm not sure which hat I'm supposed to be wearing at this moment, but it's just a question for clarification. It seems there have been some key decisions about these two documents in the process of this call. It's going to be written up and minutes circulated. Is it going to be distributed to the mailing list? That's all.
So I will make some minutes, but very brief, with mostly the action points. So the key takeaways, and then send it also to the working group mailing list. But again, all the decisions. So, well, here we kind of plan our steps forward, but all decisions are made on the mailing list. Yeah.
Sure thing, Benno. Thanks for that. Just concerned maybe that what we discussed here hasn't been properly recorded and circulated. That's all.
Yeah, indeed. Good you mentioned this. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Well, if there are no other topics, things to share, to discuss, then I'll close the working group or the interim session. Thank you all. I think Andre, myself, and Peter will also travel to ITF 125. So we will see each other, maybe in person in Shenzhen, and otherwise online. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Bye.